The Algarve coast of Portugal is a place where the Atlantic Ocean meets golden cliffs in a spectacular display of natural beauty. In May 2007, the town of Praia da Luz was a quiet sanctuary, often described as a home away from home for British tourists. It felt inherently safe, a village where the cobblestone streets were lined with hibiscus, and the scent of sea salt hung heavy in the warm air. This was the backdrop for the McCann family's spring holiday, a getaway that should have been a collection of sunny memories. Kate and Jerry McCann, both successful doctors from Leicestershire, arrived with their 3 young children, young Madeleine and her younger twin siblings. To the world, they were a perfect family seeking a brief respite from demanding careers in the tranquility of the Ocean Club Resort. Strikes the social heart of their vacation was a group of friends known as the Tapas 7. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the group gathered at the resort's tapas restaurant. Their routine was born of a desire for balance. They wanted to enjoy adult conversation while keeping their children close. The McCann's apartment, number 5A, was only 50 meters away. They established a system of rotating checks, where one adult would leave the table every 30 minutes to ensure the children were sleeping soundly. It was a rhythm of normalcy, a sequence of short walks under the starlit sky that felt mundane. Before the tragedy, days were filled with innocent joy. There were splashy afternoons by the pool, and the sight of Madeleine, with her distinctive blonde hair and striking right eye, playing happily in the Mediterranean sun. With the golden hour of their holiday was a time of pure peace, with no hint of the nightmare lurking in the shadows. Everything changed at exactly 10 p.m. on May 3rd. It was Kate's turn to make the journey back to the apartment. She walked through the quiet resort, but as she entered apartment 5A, the air felt different. The door to the children's bedroom was wide open. A sudden draft from the window chilled the room. Her heart hammered as she looked toward Madeleine's bed. It was empty. The shutter was raised. The window was now open, and the terrifying silence was deafening. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Kate's frantic return to the restaurant sent a wave of terror through the group. "Madeleine's gone. Someone has taken her," she cried, her voice fracturing the calm of the night. The initial panic was a blur of desperation. The resort transformed from a place of leisure into a chaotic search grid. The name Madeleine echoed through the dark streets as tourists and staff joined the search, flashlights cutting through the gloom. However, the response from the local authorities and police response was plagued by systemic failures. There was a critical delay in securing the town's perimeter, and the apartment was not cordoned off. Dozens of people walked through the room, contaminating potential forensic evidence. Amidst the confusion, the town's atmosphere shifted. Robert Murat, a local resident, became the first person of interest. His helpfulness was misinterpreted by many, casting a dark cloud of suspicion over the entire town of Praia da Luz. As the first night wore on, the agony for Kate and her husband Jerry was unbearable. The realization that their daughter was truly gone settled in like a physical weight, crushing grief that offered no answers. They sat in the apartment, surrounded by Madeleine's toys and the haunting scent of her presence, waiting for a dawn that promised no relief. Then a chilling detail emerged. A witness claimed to have seen a man walking briskly through the night, carrying a small child in pajamas toward the ocean. just minutes before alarm was raised. This haunting image of a child disappearing into the darkness became the first piece of a puzzle that would eventually deeply polarize. The search for Madeleine did not remain a local tragedy for long. Within days, the image of the blonde girl with the captivating smile was transmitted to every corner of the globe. Kate and Jerry McCann, driven by an agonizing desperation, realized that silence was their enemy. They engaged the media with a calculated intensity, turning their personal nightmare into a global phenomenon. Suddenly, the quiet streets of Praia da Luz were teeming with international news crews, and the golden sunlight of the Algarve was replaced by the harsh glare of camera flashes. The disappearance of a British child in a holiday destination touched a collective nerve, sparking an unprecedented level of public interest. This media firestorm was fueled by the intervention of high-profile figures. J.K. Rowling and David Beckham lent their voices and resources to the search, helping turn Madeleine into the most famous missing child in history. The face of the little girl with the unique iris became a universal icon of loss. Her face appeared on billboards and newspapers across continents. The scale of the campaign was monumental, but it was a double-edged sword. While it kept the case alive, it also created a pressure cooker of scrutiny that would soon turn back upon the parents. The investigation took a dramatic turn with the arrival of British forensic dogs, Eddie and Keela. These highly trained spaniels were experts in detecting the scent of human blood and death. In a sequence of events that would haunt the case, the dogs alerted their handlers to specific spots within apartment 5A. The dog's barks in the quiet apartment sounded like a death knell for the family's privacy. Chillingly, they also reacted to a rental car the McCanns had hired 24 days after the disappearance. The suggestion that biological traces of Madeleine were found in a vehicle rented long after she vanished provided the Portuguese police with a new, dark narrative. Based on these alerts, the tone of the investigation shifted. In September 2007, Kate and Jerry McCann were officially declared arguidos, or formal suspects. The declaration was a crushing blow. The Portuguese police developed a theory of deception, suggesting that Madeleine had died accidentally in the apartment and that her parents had staged a kidnapping to protect their careers. They believed the body had been hidden and later moved using the rental car, a claim the McCanns vehemently denied. This theory ignited a brutal trial by media. The world became polarized. One half saw the McCanns as grieving parents suffering the ultimate betrayal, while the other viewed them with cold suspicion. Tabloids scrutinized Kate's stoicism and Jerry's composure, interpreting their behavior as evidence of guilt. The public reaction was visceral, with online forums becoming battlegrounds. For the McCanns, the psychological toll was immense. They were fighting two battles: the search for their daughter and the defense of their characters. The internal turmoil was staggering. They had to care for their younger twins, while their marriage was tested by global scrutiny. Across the world, yellow ribbons became symbols of hope, yet they stood in stark contrast to the grim forensic reports. The investigation became a diplomatic nightmare, creating high tension between the UK and Portuguese governments as they clashed over the handling of evidence and legal procedures. Every press conference was a minefield of accusations and heartbreak. Despite the intense focus on the parents, other evidence whispered of a different reality. there were mysterious phone logs from the night of the disappearance that remained unresolved. Furthermore, a series of previous break-ins in the area had been largely ignored by the police. Reports described a predator who had been entering apartments and watching children while they slept in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. These patterns suggested that a malevolent force had been stalking the resort, watching the McCann's routine and waiting for a moment of vulnerability. It seemed the answer was not within the family, but lurking in the shadows of a predator who had been ignored. The years following the official closure of the Portuguese investigation in 2008 were marked by a heavy, suffocating silence, while the global media eventually moved on to other headlines. Kate and Jerry McCann refused to let their daughter's name fade into obscurity. They lived in a state of perpetual vigil, fighting against the tide of public indifference and the lingering sting of past accusations. This persistence eventually bore fruit in 2011, when the UK's Metropolitan Police launched Operation Grange. This elite task force undertook the monumental challenge of reviewing every scrap of evidence, every witness statement, and every lead that had been discarded or overlooked during the initial chaotic months in Praia da Luz. Yet this massive reinvestigation sought to breathe new life into a case that had grown cold, reviewing every overlooked detail and missed connection. The true breakthrough, however, did not come from the Portuguese coast, but from a collaborative effort with German authorities. In 2020, a new name emerged that shifted the entire trajectory of the case: Christian Bruckner. He was a convicted German predator who had spent years living in a dilapidated van near Praia da Luz during the time of Madeleine's disappearance. Bruckner was a shadow in the sunlight of the Algarve, a man with a long history of burglaries and sexual offenses who had managed to evade suspicion for over a decade. Chillingly, cell phone data placed his mobile device in the immediate vicinity of the Ocean Club resort on the very night Madeleine vanished, each receiving a 30-minute phone call just an hour before the alarm was raised. For the first time in 13 years, a viable suspect with a history of preying on children was at the center of the investigation. Despite this significant lead, the McCanns remained trapped in the agony of ambiguous loss. This specific type of grief offers no finality. It is a wound that stays open because there is no body to bury and no definitive answer to the question of where. The world watched as this single case fundamentally changed the landscape of child safety. The Madeleine McCann effect transformed how parents viewed vacation security, ending the era of perceived safety in resort environments. Parents around the world became hypervigilant, realizing that even in a place of leisure, a predator could be watching from the periphery. Over time, as the evidence against the parents crumbled and the focus shifted to Bruckner, Kate and Jerry experienced a form of public redemption. They were no longer the arguidos of tabloid speculation, but survivors who had weathered a storm of historic proportions. They transitioned into tireless advocates for other families of missing children, using their global platform to ensure that no other family would have to fight for an investigation as they did. Yet the road remained fraught with emotional cruelty. Over the years, the look-alike phenomenon saw several young women claim to be Madeleine, often fueled by viral social media campaigns. Each time the family was forced to navigate a minefield of false hope, only for DNA tests to repeatedly shatter the illusion. As the case continues to linger in the legal systems of Europe, and the final reflection remains a haunting one, the evidence against Christian Bruckner is extensive but largely circumstantial, leaving the ultimate truth buried in the mind of a man who remains silent behind prison walls. The mystery of Apartment 5A has become a tragic testament to the limitations of forensic science when the initial response is flawed. However, the legacy of the case is not one of mystery, but of an unbreakable bond. In their home in Rothley, Madeleine's bedroom remains exactly as she left it. The door is metaphorically always open. The pink walls, the untouched toys, and the birthday cards for the teenager she should have become stand as a silent, powerful vigil. It is a room waiting for a return that may never come, a poignant symbol of a parent's love that refuses to surrender to the darkness of the unknown.